Okay.
I'm Kennie Bass with Eyewitness News, and this is another Connect to Congress segment. Joining us for the nation's capital in Washington, D.C., West Virginia Senator Shelley Moore Capito. Senator, thank you for joining us. We'll go ahead and get started. I know you have a busy schedule. Let's talk about government funding. It's been a clown show for a long time, with threats of shutdowns coming up every so often. We got another reprieve a few weeks ago, but here we are again. You guys are in session, and instead of working on the budget, you pointed out to the majority leader in the Senate that he's spending a lot of times on nominations and not much time on the budget. So where are we?
Well, right now, we do have the deadlines now pushed back to January and February. So there is some room there, but this is when we should be having appropriations bills on the floor. I'm on the Appropriations Committee. I do the Labor Health Bill, which is a massive bill, and I'd love to have amendments and have our other senators not on the committee be able to make their voices heard. But Senator Schumer won't bring these bills up for one reason or another. And so we're actually wasting time. And I think the American people want to see us work, set priorities on our spending, curb our spending, and have a fiscal responsibility that makes sense, that people do at home. Why aren't we doing it here?
We'll move on to another big issue which continues to percolate, and records are being set, but not the kind of records that you want to attain. I'm talking about the border on the southern part of the country. You've been outspoken about it. Migrants continue to flood across the border. There was a proposal that was put out, I believe it was funding for military operations continuing, but also they attached a border measure to it, which Senate Democrats had no interest, it appears, in working with. Talk about that situation and what you think needs to be done. Something obviously needs to happen on the southern border.
What we have essentially now, and I think this is right at the foot of the president and his policies, is an open border. Just last night, 12,000 people across were brought to the country and then sent into our country to have their asylum claims heard in 8 to 10 years. We don't know who these people are. This is a national security issue. And for the life of me, I cannot understand why the president does not embrace policies that bring these numbers down. We have put forward asylum, make sure asylum claims are heard and are more difficult to get so you can turn people back at the border. Let's alleviate the parole problem where 350,000 people are here from countries that the president has designated. Third safe country. If you're going through Mexico, you have to ask for asylum there first. I mean, these are accepted principles around the globe. We should be doing it here, and these numbers will come down. But right now, they're just unsustainable. They're record-setting every single day, every single week. And it's people from China, it's people from South America, it's people from Afghanistan, Ukraine, everywhere are coming into our country without any accountability.
What are the chances of both the Senate and the House miraculously getting on the same page and passing something, presenting it to the president to try to alleviate the problem?
So here's where we are right now. The president has come to us and asked for federal funding for a security bill. That would include more money for Ukraine, help for Israel, and also help to deter the Chinese incursions into Taiwan. And he included in that a border package, but he didn't include any kind of policy changes. Here's the key to all of this. I do support continuing to help Ukraine because we need to push back Putin. I do support supporting Israel and the anti-China initiatives, but I support a policy change at the southern border, which we have to have. So to me, it's a simple solution. Pair them all together, have substantive changes on the border to bring the numbers down and more accountability, and we'll be able to move forward on a funding package for international aid. I think it's all tied together, Kenny. I think our national security is tied to our international security, and when you look at the players, Iran, Russia, and China, there's a lot of power struggles here, and I think nothing that they would love more than to see us fail.
You talked about Israel, which brings me to my next question. You've been supporting Israel very strongly since this whole mess started. Hamas, with a lot of people calling for a ceasefire, didn't honor the last ceasefire with the attack that they had on the bus station. Some hostages were exchanged, which was great, but now it appears that Israel is continuing its operation to rid the world of Hamas. How much pressure is being put on the Senate and the House to pressure Israel to have some sort of ceasefire again, which seems to benefit Hamas, versus just giving them funding and letting them do what they need to do?
Well, I mean, there are protests here every day on Capitol Hill for people who want to cease fire. Let's go back to October the 7th. The brutality with which innocent Israeli families, mothers, children were attacked, the stories are horrifying. The rapes, the abuse of watching children have it as their parents are being murdered. I mean, this is beyond the realm of what we can imagine humans would do to one another. So to rid ourselves of Hamas, who are the ones who are funding and training and conceiving of this plot, I'm all for that, and I am all for Israel rooting that out in Gaza, and so there are pressures to eliminate any kind of innocent victims being killed in Gaza. But we have to remember the Palestinians elected Hamas to lead their country, and so I'm going to support Israel's right to not just exist but to defend themselves and to make sure that this can't happen again.
Moving a little bit closer to home as we get near the end of the interview, thankfully it looks like the Mountaineer Gas, Rich American Water situation on Charleston's west side is finally clearing up. There's people getting back to normalcy, but it does illustrate how fragile our infrastructure system is. While something happening on a local level obviously deals with a city and a state, infrastructure is a national level problem, and I know that you guys are trying to find a solution to avoid situations like we just went through.
Right. Well, we did pass, and I voted for the Investment and Jobs Act, that is the big infrastructure package that was passed and signed into law 2 years ago. That's roads, but it's also these water systems, and it's our energy infrastructure. You know, West Virginia has a lot of old infrastructure, particularly in our cities like Charleston and Huntington, where these things were constructed at the turn of the last century. And so that's what this bill is about. It's replacing water systems, sewer system, wastewater. It's modernizing. I mean, you read statistics all the time of the amount of water that is lost from where it's first pushed out into the piping to go to different residents. You know, the loss of water is like 50%. Water's a precious resource here. So we need to modernize this. We are pushing federal funding along with the state funding to try to modernize our cities and our counties in their infrastructure. These are expensive projects. And, you know, in terms of what happened on the west side, you know, very, very heartbreaking for these families, and to imagine, you know, all of a sudden you can't cook, you can't heat, you can't get warm water because of the gas line situation. I think was difficult, but I'm glad to know that people are back on the systems now. But it does point to a much larger problem.
If you'll indulge me very quickly as I ask a couple quick questions. We are in December, we're in the holiday season.
Sure.
We as human beings tend to look back on the year that was. As you look back over the previous 12 months as we head toward 2024, what do you think your biggest accomplishments were this year in the Senate?
Well, I think, you know, I'm on appropriations bill. We were able to actually get all of those appropriations bills out of committee onto the floor, even though it hasn't been a final destination. I think certainly watching the growth at the national park and preserve in the New River Gorge has been something that I've enjoyed all year. My year started in a personal way, very, very joyfully, in that on January 1st, our 8th grandchild was born. So I embrace that, particularly as the holiday season.
That's a pretty good start. One last question. What would you like Congress to accomplish next year? The biggest things on the plate that you would like to see taken care of?
We've got to get our fiscal house in order here. We are amassing over $30 trillion worth of debt. With these rising interest rates, it's being felt even more difficult. The economic situation with inflation and cost of goods and grocery store costs and gas is a situation that needs to become more controlled. And we can do a part of that here in the United States Senate and in Congress by reining in our spending. So to me, that should be the biggest focus for next year. The border, yes. International security, yes. The drug issue, yes. but we need to get our fiscal house in order.
Senator Shelley Moore Capito, always a pleasure. Thank you for your time. Happy holidays to you and yours.
Thank you. Same to you. Thank you.